No mai, haere mai ki Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Welcome to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod once again. Week 2 of Super Rugby over. Upsets. This competition, it was last year, again this year, a great competition. You just don't know what's going to happen each week. We'll get into plenty of that, including the Highlanders. They're upset at the Blues. You know, we slept on them, did we? Oh, we were accused of sleeping on them anyway. We're getting into them big time this week for you Highlanders fans anyway, especially Tavar Narvai. Plenty to talk about in the Six Nations as well. We've got Cortez Ratimer on the show. We've also got Opiki starting this week. So Aisha Leti Linga, one of the most dangerous attacking exponents of rugby in the women's game, and also a hell of a laugh. She'll be on the show as well. So plenty to talk about, including your emails, the picking competition, and also we'll have a look at the MVP for this week. So before we get going, to my left, James Parsons. As always, Jipper, tough couple of weeks for you.
Yeah, well, not for me personally, but as a Blues fan, yes, it hasn't been easy. And I think we've got to find form pretty quickly because, as we know, this is a short comp and they need to get their mojo back, and no better place than the capital this weekend.
Yeah, speaking of mojo, Bryn Hall coming off a huge win over his old team on the weekend.
You know, playing the boys is always tough when you're playing against your old teteammates, but yeah, it was good to get one over them. I think we ended up winning by 30, 40 points, which was great to be able to reconnect with them in the changing room after.
And not rub it in at all.
Absolutely not. Just went in there with my big orange kit, walking in then with big smiles on my face. But now it was great to reconnect and sitting really nicely in the season so far.
Cool, so that's a win for Kabuta over the Blue Revs if you missed out on that. We're going to start this week straight into our new segment, the Ashley Martin Medical Hair Centre's Turning Point. Plenty of turning points on the weekend, especially within the Highlanders game. We saw, Finn Hurley do plenty of incredible things. But we're going to start with Tavar Narvai. What an incredible player he is. I think the turning point for me in that was the turnover, followed by the 50-22 in quick succession, and things were going their way.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was definitely the turning point, and I suppose getting them down there to be able to soak up time with the yellow-red card and then come away with 3 points. I think that was massive in terms of the outcome of that game. I still think the Blues had the opportunities to win, but the Highlanders were just men possessed, and they did a pretty powerful haka for Conor Garden-Bashett at the start of the game, and you sort of heard a few of them after the game say yes, they were down to 13 physically, but they felt there was a 14th out there that brought them home in that last 20 minutes. So a massive night for the Landers and thoroughly deserved. Like, they were exceptional.
Bryn, guts, just straight up guts.
You're talking around second and third efforts. Tavar Narvai, they were chucked on. That we've just talked about. Hurley, who I thought was outstanding and is going to be a great acquisition for that team. You talk around Tangitau, the last couple of weeks, what he's been able to do for the environment. Then even you look at Henry Bell as well with that kick in the last couple of minutes to be able to put them in a position to get down in the Blues half. So look, just a tenacious and fighting kind of mindset victory.
I think it was about 19 minutes or 18 and a half minutes with 13 players to tackle at 90%. Against a team that is known for attack, obviously pace and speed. It just the effort in and around the breakdown, the desperation on defenders from the inside covering, allowing, when people cut back and they got cleaned up. And I do think, look, a special performance from Tavar Narvai, but some of the chop tackles in and around him that allow him that access to the ball are just so precise. There's a lot of guys that sort of probably haven't got the reps. Like Sean Withy last week, he topped the tackle count against the Tars, 27, and I think he missed one, tackled around 94% again. Tackled, top tackler on the weekend, 35 rucks hit. A player like himself in and around that channel and just doing the legwork to get the bodies straight to the ground to allow the opportunity for turnovers and counter-ups. Same with Fabian Holland. He had the most dominant tackles in the game. He had 32 rucks hit. These are big numbers. We sort of highlighted Brodie Retallick a number of years ago, and just sort of his point of difference was the amount of work he got through. Well, those two men, the first 2 weeks, have done exactly the same. And those numbers, getting those breakdowns, getting into those 30s, mid-30s, that's a big shift.
And we will have Fabian Holland on the show in the next few weeks. To go off a shift like that and take that line-out steal on his own line is something else.
Yeah, and I just think the composure, whether you look at it, a lot of people saying, why didn't they take the midfield scrum? And there's elements you could look at it that it is easy for Lucy's to get off, but 2 men down, maybe that was the right option. But I still think even going to the corner with 2 men down, potentially going to a full line out and knowing that they're only going to lift Holland, like they only shaped to lift Holland, really looking to throw away from him and get that ball won first and foremost to get the maul, which had been successful for the Blues. But a big play. It was an all or nothing play because the previous try, they stayed down and they couldn't stop them. So, you know, it was for a young man to make that decision and then execute and deliver on it is massive. And I suppose it shows why he is touted as a an All Black this season, and I think those sorts of decisions under pressure will probably be noticed a hell of a lot more than maybe hitting rucks and so forth, because that's composure, game on the line. He's saying, "I'm the man. I want to be part of it," and to get that steal against a fellow All Black lock is massive.
Brenna, Jibber just touched on the inside defence from the Highlanders. The Blues, on the other hand, their defence within those closed channels was compromised pretty regularly, wasn't it? What was going wrong there for them?
Fakatava, I thought, was pretty evident. I thought, especially in that last second half, you saw the big dummy that he was able to get through the line. But, I feel when they're getting good go full ball and Folau's able to kind of float it in around to try to get in around that hard defence, it kind of condenses team to be able to then get a little bit tighter. And then, like we've probably seen the last 2 weeks, I've really been impressed with the outside backs of the Highlanders to be able to try and beat players one-on-one, or being able to get those mismatches that we probably just didn't see with them last year. So
in and around that breakdown as well for the Blues is when the Highlanders got in behind them on attack, defensively, we spoke about that new rule. You can't touch the 9, so there probably wasn't as much focus on potentially slowing the ball down as we've previously seen because they're on the back foot. But then, because of that speed of ball and the nature of the ball getting in behind more often than not, they were almost thinking about their second job. Even when Fakatava comes in, if you watch their hips are out because they're more worried about what's happening out there, and it's you do it all the time because there's a threat out there, but then it's the smarts of Fakatava to read that body language, to know when to pull trigger, and it's been a growth in his game, and he pulled trigger at all the right times. But I suppose that communication and that inability to connect doesn't allow you to do your first job first, which when you're around the ruck defensively is you've got to be able to come up square. Sometimes the 9 can slip in and fill that void, but again, because they were so far behind or over the advantage line, the Blues just couldn't get set.
Could be a great direction for, I guess, this Highlanders group to be able to give them the belief that, if we get our things right, we do all those little things that we saw on the weekend on the back of Tavar Narvai and his form. They're going to be definitely hard to beat. It's a consistency, and can they continue this for the rest of the year? That'll be their challenge, and I think with Tavar Narvai leading the way, I reckon they can do it.
Tactically, they just seem so on the same page throughout the squad as to what they were trying to achieve from minute 1 through to minute 80. Whereas the Blues, if you look at them, and I've tried to find a stat to best explain what I'm about to say, is they were almost caught between 2 game plans. Like, we'd seen obviously the tactic of using their forwards and one of the most efficient teams in the 22. But if you look at their carry to pass ratio, so last season they probably averaged around sort of that 89-90% carry to pass ratio. So for every 9 carries, the 10th one's going out the back. Same against the Chiefs. They were very efficient in scoring points last week against the Chiefs, and they did it at 87%. So when they had their opportunities, they stuck to their systems and they got the reward when those opportunities presented. Didn't get many, but took the ones that were given. Against the Highlanders, they had a truckload of opportunities, but their carry to pass ratio was 74%. So that's a lot more. I don't know if you saw, they went out the back a lot, and then they sort of went for kicks that weren't high enough for contestable, but weren't really going for distance, and it just felt like the whole night they were caught between 2 minds, and I think that was the same on defence and in attack. And when you're caught in those 2 minds, your ability to react to clean a ruck, or your ability to run the right line when someone else is thinking something else, it just makes you very clunky. And then I suppose, as I said, that last 20 minutes, it just felt like the Highlanders grew in belief, and it just forced a lot of errors from the Blues on themselves.
Speaking of that, Brenna, the Crusaders in the second half, they were a second off a lot. They just fell off. They were there and then they just fell off.
Yeah, they did. And I think you've got to give credit to the Chiefs. I think, 5 tries in that second half, and I thought, their execution and like his ability to stay in the game was a lot better. I think if you look in that kind of 54th to kind of 62nd minute mark, there was just a lot of handling errors, whether that's through discipline, mistakes, or some form of unforced error through that time. And so, the two tries to Leroy Carter and Finau were probably the big ones in the second half to, I guess, start their momentum for the Chiefs. And I guess with that pressure of the scoreboard pressure and the time periods that I touched on with the mistakes that the Crusaders did, they didn't let them breathe. So you've got to give full credit to the Chiefs in terms of what they did in that second half. And look, I think, Quinn Tavar, I think, considering that he came on very early in that second half, I think he's been one of the best players for the Chiefs this year. I think his decision making around his ball carries, getting over the advantage line, his involvement in the attack, scores 2 tries obviously, but all the little stuff that he's doing, along with a lot of the other Chiefs players in the first 2 weeks, they were very, very good. So yeah, it's going to be definitely a tough review for the Crusaders, but like Jip just touched on with the Blues, if you're a little bit off in certain areas, you're going to get kind of dealt to like we did on the weekend. So yeah, very well done from the Chiefs, and a little bit of soul searching for the Crusaders to do with their second half performance and the execution, which I thought was pretty poor in all the years of that second half.
If you look at the teams that lost, you've got the Blues, 13% exits failed, the Crusaders 12%. Although the Hurricanes won, they were 17% failed exits. And what I'm trying to point there is, yes, you got points, but then actually failing to get out of your half. Yeah. And if you look at the Highlanders, 0% failed, Chiefs 0% failed, the Drua were a lot failed because they tried to run, so that's probably what gave the Canes the ability to actually come back and win. But in these other 2 games, the Chiefs and the Landers just didn't leave that breathing room. They just got the ball out of their half, and they were very clinical and methodical, and then they came to life, either on counter-attack or, putting pressure on at set piece. And then the other thing, I looked at the last quarter of the Chiefs to try and emphasise, although that it's hard to single players out off the bench, but just how there's synergy almost with fresh legs like razors. And against the Blues the following week, they scored 14 points. They had 67 carries. Out of those 67 carries, they had 55 rucks, so they do keep the ball alive, to the Blues, who only had 17 carries. So 67 to 17, you're on D a hell of a lot. Yeah. They'd still kicked 11 times, so they're not just running it from everywhere, being reckless. They still kicked 11 times to the Blues 4. The Blues made 97 tackles to their 29. The Blues gave away 5 penalties to their 0. Crusaders, they scored 20 points. Now this is a stat to show how razor sharp the Chiefs were in this last 20. 55 carries, but only 29 rucks set. So they're keeping that ball alive, and it's just too hard to catch up. That 55 carries to 29 rucks set really shows that they lift the tempo in that last 20. They've done the hard work. They've earned the right to have this crack, and the bench comes on, and it's not Harlem Globetrotters. It's still really efficient, but it's win the collision, offload, pop if you hit the ground, even release the ball and go another couple of metres when you get tackled. All those things really stack up, and it just doesn't allow you time to connect, breathe, get line speed, and before you know it, you're behind the sticks.
What I really enjoyed was 2 examples that I saw on the weekend. You look at Leroy Carter's try. Now, a lot of teams during Super Rugby and even international footy are going to put line speed pressure on you, and so I think getting that ball away under pressure is really difficult. And I think for Leroy Carter, you'll see, I can't remember who actually gave the bridge pass to get him on the edge, but that skill set has been pretty good in terms of the Chiefs this year, in terms of being able to get that ball to the space. And then I even look at Parker's try, Josh Jacobs' try, you look at the tip ball that Parker does to get into that space, but you look at the animation in and behind, and that synergy, or that kind of everybody on the same page, it's really hard to defend because you've got to defend two people at once. So I think they're getting those things really good. And, I think when you're all on the same page, your preparation seems like they're doing a really good job around that week to week, because it's not only are they going through teams in terms of their physicality with their forward pack the first 2 weeks, but all the animation in and around that, with whether it be a forward or a back, they seem to be choosing the right option, which shows a clear sign of a team that knows what they're doing, and preparation-wise, are very, very clear.
55% gain line carries with 65% lightning quick ball. I know if you lightning quick ball 3 seconds or less, a lot of the time it's 1 second. Like Xavier Rowe and Cortez Ratama are having a field day, in terms of getting that ball out and keeping it alive. I just think we do have to credit the Chiefs from an accuracy, skill, execution point of view, and the simplicity of, committing numbers to then take the space out wide is all based around winning the collision and having quick fast ball. Like, it is so quick. It's, and the difference why the numbers probably aren't as telling against the Blues is because it's wet, which forced errors, and they had to set a few more rucks. Whereas this dry weather, the more dry weather footy this team plays, and I don't think if you watch that 80 minutes, you'd say anything was reckless. Do you know what I mean? Like, no pass was a flick pass or pop pass, like it was catch and pass.
Yeah.
And it was, and when it wasn't, okay, strong carry, clean out, Xavier Rowe, right mark, ball back up, another body coming in, fast ball. You just run out of numbers.
Yeah. Those two are an incredible 1-2 punch. We caught up with Cortez Ratima a few weeks ago to have a chat with him, particularly about, I suppose, one of his strengths and the strengths we're seeing with the Chiefs, an incredible work ethic. And we wondered how did Ratima end up being that good at getting those little things right. You had a cracker of a 2024. I mean, the Chiefs made it all the way to the final, and then you became an All Black. Played 11 tests, got to experience South Africa, Europe. Did you take some time over the summer to just sit down and go, man, that was a year?
Just being able to go sit down and reflect on like some of the goals or lifelong goals I've had, and be able to tick a couple of them off was pretty surreal. So
a lifelong goal, that's quite a big thing to tick off at the age of, 23, 22? Isn't it? Like, I know that as a rugby player, you need to achieve that probably in your 20s anyway, but when you reset your goals, was that an easy thing to do?
You've got it, and the hardest part of it would probably be trying to stay there and stay at the top of your game, or try and get to the top of your game and then stay there.
And have you talked to people about how you go about doing that? Is there a blueprint?
Oh, not that I know of. Usually my old man helps me out with just put like goal setting and stuff like that. And
he's been a big influence on your career.
Yeah, he has been pretty much since day one. He's helped me out and been there for me. So
you're down in what, Pio Pio?
Yeah,
down country.
Yep.
On a farm.
Yep.
And your old man is a farmer, rugby coach.
Yeah, so he's dabbled in a little bit of everything. At the moment, he's over in Gold Coast doing a bit of truck driving. But yeah, back when I lived in Pio Pio, we grew up on a farm and stuff, and he was a farmer, and then would help us with our rugby and stuff, coaching and stuff down there. So yeah, we're pretty lucky to have him.
So he loved the game.
Yeah.
He's into the game. He's into making sure you're out there training and getting all those things done.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the start. From when I talk to people about you in preparation for this, the one thing that always came up is that it was dedication, really. Lots of other words connected to it, but dedication to your craft and getting it done. And you learnt that from him?
Some of it from him, not all of it. Like a lot of it, like he taught me around the game was maybe not like work rate. That was probably something I struggled to listen to him with, like him telling me going for a run and stuff like that was that I sort of brushed it off, and it wasn't until I went to Hamilton Boys High that I actually started to learn a little bit about that real dedication about what it takes to, I guess, try and get to the next level.
There's been a few guys who've come through that school. Well, there's been a lot in recent years who've done really, really well. That setup there, is it kind of like a professional setup? You're training like a proper rugby player.
It's probably gotten easier to get out and train. Now being a professional than what it was back then. So I'm pretty grateful for that, and the habits that they instilled in me to I guess make life out of school and footy out of school a bit easier.
So are we talking like 6 a.m. gym sessions, then going to class, then going to training kind of thing?
Yeah, so like Monday morning we'd do shuttles, Monday night we'd have like skills, Tuesday morning we'd do gym, Tuesday night we'd have like proper team training, and then you get a sleep in Wednesday and then train Wednesday arvo. And that was just like a bit of like ruck touch or something, and then Thursday morning gym. Thursday arvo, was just normal like team training, and then we'd have like a Friday lunchtime captain's run. Damn. And then into footy on Saturday. So
and then you had Sunday off?
Yeah, Sunday off.
That's insane for a kid. Like, that is serious dedication.
Yeah, it was honestly, but like you don't even notice it when you're at school. Like, you're just like there, you want to play first 15 rugby, you want to be involved in it, so like you'll do whatever it takes to be there, I guess.
Yeah, you're with your mates.
Yeah, and you're with the mates, so.
Yeah. The other thing that I keep on reading about, there was like a bunch of articles, is the legend of your bench press. Like, there's probably 20 articles out there right now talking about the legend of your 170 kg bench press. When did that become a thing that you knew that you had a phenomenal amount of strength for your size?
I don't know if I've like known it or not, but my dad actually, here's another one. My dad actually studied to be a PT as well, so he's always helped me with like that kind of stuff too. So I pretty much just started training with him when he'd go to the gym and just go along with him.
Yeah, so you started early and now you've got old man strength.
Yeah, something like that maybe.
Yeah. Fair enough. I suppose that running fitness for you, where you have to get to every ruck, and I suppose one of your strengths is your support lines and being there when you need to be. You've just got to be, as a halfback, possibly the fittest guy on the field.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, got to get to every ruck, or try to get to every ruck. Obviously, you're not going to get to all of them all the time. Try and anticipate or predict where the ball's going to go, whereas other people might be scanning space in other places or reloading to give you a man on the edge or something like that. So, yeah, it's usually a pretty simple job for us.
Yeah, the offload comes and you're under the post.
Yeah.
And you got a bloke called Satiti there. Can help you with that, man.
Yeah. So, Wally, Penny, got some big boys that can chuck the ball up. So
get over the line. What was that like for you and behind him, watching this kid go from relatively obscure to, player of the year?
Yeah.
Incredible.
He's a freak athlete, eh? He would have played more All Blacks games before Super Rugby games, and he's just gotten better and better the higher the stakes got. So I admire the way he holds himself and the way he is able to step up to the moment when his moment came. So
Cortez Ratma, low-key character, but by Jove's 170 kg in the gym is something else. I'd have that falling all over me. And of course, outside of him will be Sean Stevenson, who's making his way back from Japan to rejoin the team. And he's been over with Brynard Kubota. They've got a bit of a problem here. Josh Jacob is finding his feet. Damien McKenzie is looking good at fullback. They've got two very strong wingers, Nano Saturo and Narawa.
And Carter.
What do you do?
Well, I think knowing Clayton McMillan, he's probably going to reward the guys that have performed, and I think you have to select on form. But I think if you also watch Sean's performance, they'll be licking their lips having him back from what we've seen in Japan. Yes, it's going to be a step up, but he's still got gifts that can really lead this team to the final. They've been to the final twice and haven't been able to get the silverware. You add I suppose a domino like a Sean, it's going to increase competition at training, and it's going to force, the best to rise. So from a Chiefs point of view, coaching point of view, there could be nothing better. From a squad point of view, depth, there could be nothing better. So he'll probably have to play a role on the bench initially, and then he'll show his stuff, because I think potentially, Damien slipped into 10 quite early against the Blues, but I thought Josh Jacob really bounced back against the Crusaders. He looked a lot more comfortable. He took charge and really owned that 10 role. So I think off the back of that performance, you can't not start him. But we've also got to realise we've got a guy playing at 15, Damien McKenzie, who wants that 10 jersey for the All Blacks. Now, what Shooter does, or Sean coming into the squad, is going to give Damien the ability to go to 10. And as I've always said, sometimes it's not bad as a young person to sit on the bench and grab 10, 15 minutes here and there and really have the ability to grow and understand that level of Super Rugby, to set yourself up for All Black selection. And no young person wants to hear it, but I think that balance could actually work for all three of those players, and I think that's where you'll probably see Damien be promoted to 10 and Sean will probably play that 15 role more often than not.
There could be another option, just keep him here. Just keep him in Japan. We'd love to just continue to keep having him. And I think the depth that the Chiefs have shown, do they really need him?
Nah, well, we do, mate. So I think that's where we'll disagree. We'll have our little meeting. We'll disagree and commit to my way of thinking. More depth in New Zealand rugby, the old mate.
He doesn't want to be in New Zealand. He wants to be in Japan. You know, as
Yep.
I would have imagined a coach would think, why would I want a person who doesn't want to be with me? What kind of mindset is he bringing back?
There's no secret. I think he even came out in an interview and said, that there were cards shown in terms of maybe at the All Black level that there was an opportunity for him to continue to keep applying the trade to be an All Black. So I guess with the years and the games that he had played in New Zealand, coming to Japan was the next best option to be able to set himself up and to experience something different. So, but in saying that, he knows that if he does go back, then he's going to be all in. Sean's not a guy that's just going to be half-assing it and being able to not be fully invested to a team, especially for a team that he's played so much rugby for. I think he's only a few more games for being a Centurion, which I think is a big thing for him. So obviously wants to be in Japan. That's the decision that, why he was over here. But I think whether he needs to come back or not, and I think, there's obviously things in the contract that he has to go back. They're still going to get the best version of Shaun Stevenson, and the fact that he's been playing some really good footy over here. So it's not like he's going to be underdone coming back into Super Rugby. He's been playing a lot of minutes over here. So like I said, it's just going to add depth to that environment. And anytime you can have a caliber of player like Shaun, Damian McKenzie probably wants to play 10 as well. It frees him up, and they're going to get Shaun back at fullback. Obviously, depending on whether he starts or comes off the bench, with how the Chiefs boys have been playing in these first couple of rounds.
I think Shaun's going to come back and prove a point. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder. He wants to be an All Black, feels like he should be there, and there's no better way than to carve it up. And I still stress, from a New Zealand rugby point of view, we need Damian playing a lot of 10. He's an outstanding fullback, great, but I think he can be an outstanding 10, and if he is to take the All Black 10 jersey, he needs time in the saddle before we get to that test match schedule.
Well, we got an interesting email during the week where people were talking about, hey, Super Rugby needs to be talked about as Super Rugby, not just an extended All Blacks trial. If you want people to be excited about this competition, it needs to be thought of about how is he going to contribute best to the title-winning run of this team. In the NBA, you don't hear people talking about whether or not they're playing for Team USA. It's about winning the NBA title. So when push comes to shove, if you are the Chiefs, what is the best interests of the Chiefs? To have Damian McKenzie at 10 with Shaun Stevenson at fullback, or Josh Jacob at 10 with Damian McKenzie at fullback?
Yeah, I sort of feel like I've already answered. I think it's good to have Josh bide his time, learn his craft, and behind a Damian McKenzie, so that when his time comes, he can thrive at Super Rugby level and international level.
Yeah.
I think our game is very different to that of basketball, whereas international rugby is the pinnacle, NBA is the pinnacle.
Yeah.
So there is a difference in that sense. But I think if you're talking about Super Rugby, I think any Super Rugby fan wants Shaun Stevenson in there.
Yeah.
And the more often you see someone like him play, the better off this competition is going to be.
Yeah.
I have no doubt about that.
He's a superb player, there's no doubt, and I'm sure he'll add plenty, including a very good long-distance kicking game into that Chiefs side, which is really strong when he's there. Let's talk about the Hurricanes versus the Drua. Look, Cam Roigard looked really good at times there. And
Plenty of fantasy points.
I thought it was really interesting. Bruno, I'd like your take on this. When it comes to the new rules, can you see that a guy like Cam Roigard is absolutely benefiting, considering the time and space that he's been given?
If you're on the other side and you're playing a Cam Roigard, your rock, heart and your lead action, those first three defenders at the ruck, probably even the other side as well, all need to be on. But if I'm the Hurricanes and want to continue to keep growing there and using his weapon as a running game, keep that lightning ball really fast, maybe make the cleans a little bit longer to even give him more space to try and use his attacking ability that he's been doing great in the first two rounds, especially on the weekend against the Drua.
I think their attack's actually going really well, the Hurricanes. Like, we'll get to the D, but 73% gain line, like that is... Any halfback's going to enjoy that ride. You can't get set. They've only had 13 turnovers against the Drua. 99% carry efficiency. So on attack and their phase play, and when they get the ability to strike off set piece, second to none, I think. If you look at Duplessis Creefy, and I say it always on here for forwards that are looking to play in that forward pod role, square hips down the line, the ball he gives out the back to Riley Hohepa that sets up the match-winning try for Harry Godfrey is unbelievable. Like, he engages the defence. There's a nice tip line coming, but the floated pass, like, he had to trust. Like, I almost thought it was going to go to the ground. And then Hohepa hit it, broke through, Godfrey, that's the match winner. So their attack, they're scoring plenty of points. Where I think they're struggling a little bit is their rush defence, and the Drua were amazing at getting outside that rush defence, because even when they were down, when Kirifi was in the bin, they still, the butcher try, let's use that as an example, they still got on the outside. But if you watch the Hurricanes, they were tight defensively in here, and Naholo rushes up to show face and then bites on the inside, and then there's 3 Drua players free. So I think a couple of times throughout the game as they went for the rush defence, but they didn't fully commit. And we always say this about rush defence, like if you don't fully commit, you're never going to stop ball and man, and the ball will always beat you. And I think their timing and their ability, because both the Blues and the Hurricanes were the top defensive sides last season. I do think these new rules are impacting rush defence. Like, there's just no time to get set, to create the width, to be able to set and go. So I think that'll be a big focus of Corey Jane, is why are they getting on the outside so easily? And it's just that speed of ruck ball just seems to not allow them to, and when I say width, it's like you always have to corral in, and then as forwards around the ruck, you've got to bounce out. And the more you can bounce out, you almost want one pass to beat 3 people rather than one pass beating 6 people. Because if you're 6 people tight, you're going to be short somewhere, and it sort of sells the rush defence down the river. And that happened a number of times. And I know the Drua are amazing attacking athletes, but I think we also saw it, the Crusaders got a lot of pay, in and around the little dinks over the top or spreading to that width. So I think that's probably their biggest work on, is just finding out when to rush and when they know they can get man and ball. You have to get man and ball, because if you don't, it's too easy. You can't rely on the most outrageous pass I've ever seen in rugby fly into the in goal and not just draw and pass. But it was a coming of age of Harry Godfrey defensively. He set the tone early. A number of times in behind, he made one-on-one tackles in the middle of the park. He got across, saved 2 tries, one on that side, the non-try we were talking about, but also the other side, getting him out. His arm went out before he went down. So we saw it. We know his attacking prowess. We've seen him at fullback, but I think this weekend will give him the confidence to really take charge. And we've said about this 10 jersey for the Canes, they've had a number of injuries come, but man, he has stepped up, and I think he'll have the belief of the team, but more importantly, have the belief in himself that he now belongs at this level, and he can command, the ability to drive the Hurricanes back to where we know they can be.
Having your depth is really important, and there were a couple of times where Ravula was probably a little bit deeper to try and get those Hurricane boys to really come at him. So that was one thing that they were able to try and get that ball to the edge or get it to the outside. But then I think also the animation around their short ball runner, but then also if it was just a little bit wider, they'd have a guy that was just in behind the number 10 or the pivot. So whether they got kind of 3 forwards there and the 10 was out the back, his depth was really, really good. But then off that, they were kind of on the shoulder, so it was quite hard to be able to defend if you're the Hurricanes. So I think having that 0-1 ball just on the outside of the 10 or that second pivot was really good, and their downline to be able to try and go through and being able to bring that winger in nice and tight to get the ball to the edge. So hopefully that makes sense, but I just thought that the Hurricanes defense, they left too many seams. So I think like Jibba said with Corey Jane, it's probably just the decision making of like when you're all going to go. Collectively, you've all got to be on the same page to put that skill set under pressure. Or if you can't get that width, you've lost the breakdown, you've lost that kind of slow ball, maybe just a connection base to be able to try and get connected and then being able to make tackles. And then once you're set, that line is set and you have the opportunity to bring the line speed, it might be a bit better making those decisions a lot easier.
But that's why I'm not a coach. There's so many variables and frustrating.
You'd be up all night.
Yeah, I'd be bald, that's for sure. I'd need Ashley and Martin at pace.
Yeah. I'm sure they'll sort you out. Okay, look, we've had a number of emails come through this week to aotearoa.rugbypod@sky.co.nz. So much to talk about. We haven't been able to get to all of them, but we will over time. One from Richard McLean. He's really keen on understanding more about the new rules. He wants to know which teams are more impacted by these rules, which teams are making the most of it and which teams are struggling the most with the new rules, particularly the halfback rule. I suppose the speed around there, that seems to be the biggest change.
Yeah, I think the halfback rule, but I also think from a contested kick point of view, I don't know about you, Bryn, but it almost like they're trying to buy teams time, but they're not trying to go for the huge Gary Owen or the up and under, because it obviously always ends in a clash of bodies and it's not that tidy. And if you get that too long, you don't buy time for the winger to chase. So I don't really have an answer who's doing it really well, but there is a lot of different styles of kicking to utilise that no escort rule. And I don't think any team's quite nailed it, but you can see they're trying things out that if you can execute not like a massive up and under, but not too far, that gets your attacking player in the contest, I think is the perfect one. But it's actually quite hard not to just give it a heave-ho high, and then when you go for the lighter one, it sometimes can fly a little bit further. So there's a bit of a skill development thing happening there, I feel, with a lot of the kickers. I don't know about you, Bryn, if you've seen it, but it feels like that, because whenever it's high, no one really wins out of it. It's quite messy.
Having that, even a 15, 16 metre box kick, I'm using the box kick as an example. Some teams have actually hit it a little bit short, but it's almost too far for the following player that's coming in to try and catch the ball. It's more so landing on kind of a halfback, or just the halfback, just in behind the halfback. So I think the execution of the kick has been a little bit shorter, knowing that you can't get an escort rule at the moment. Some teams are getting really good pay out of it. I think one thing you might see if teams are not being able to get up for the ball, we might be starting to see teams that are going to counter-ruck a little bit better. And I think we've seen that a little bit in the Six Nations, that if you don't get that kick right, but you can still make a play of getting tackle ball and then counter-rucking that ruck. I think we might see teams using it a little bit better in that space, because I think the escort, I've actually enjoyed it, because it's taken away that kind of escort rule, making it a little bit more of a contest. And the click attack and the counter attack that you are getting from it, you are seeing teams, when they do get their ball back, their license is maybe 1 or 2 pass shifts from that, and then it's opened up the game for another 50-22, or being able to hold on to the ball to try and build pressure holding on to the ball off that. So those are probably 2 things that I would like to see. Just the counter ruck, probably, if you don't get that distance right, or being able to, I guess, make it a little bit longer, and being able to barge that as well.
We may start seeing, as Bryn said, maybe more box kicks, because every example I'm talking about has probably come off the 10 or a 15 out the back of a pod. It's not really an answer, but I do think that's the biggest one teams are trying to feel out and see how they can best utilise it. The ruck one with the half, it's black and white, the rules, so that's why that's creating the biggest impact for everyone, I think, off the back of a good carry.
Yeah. It would be interesting to see whether it affects Opiki as well, which is starting this week. Super Rugby Opiki, we've got 2 big games. We've got the Manawa versus Matatu and Poa versus the Blues this weekend. Looking at this year's competition, obviously your Blues took the title last year. Do you see it as the same this year?
If you went off the last pre-season game, it was pretty efficient. But obviously there were a lot of X factor on the Manawa bench. But you have to like, I suppose, the consistency of the squad and some of the athletes they have, and Portia Woodman being around. But I mean, it was only a few weeks ago I said the injection of Bowden Barrett would bolster the Blues squad, and so it's like anything. It's hard to sort of predict. Like it does seem like it's potentially a 3-horse race in terms of the Hannah King going down to Matatu. I think it's going to be a big get, but as we're about to hear from Aisha, I think the Poa are going to be a little bit of an underdog as well. They've got some X-Factor players coming back that can be disruptive. If they can get their core sort of set piece right, they can be in the hunt as well, even though they've lost someone of Hannah King's experience. But I would say it would be hard to just say, yes, the Blues are favourites, just based on what I've seen pre-season. It almost feels like a Blues, Manawa, Matatu off the back of pre-season from what I've seen is pretty even.
I was a bit shocked when I saw that scoreboard for the Blues on the weekend, but I think, like you said, there was a few interchanges on the second half. But yeah, I think the Blues, I think for me personally, are favourites. You've also got Portia Woodman coming back, which I think is a great pickup for the Blues. And I think also for the competition, when you can have someone like Portia coming into that Blues environment, which is already very strong, right, considering that they're defending champions. The Chiefs will always be there or thereabouts. They've got a lot of great players that are there, and I think having Hannah King, Jippy's already touched on a bit with Matatu, I think is an important cog. I think you've obviously got Maya Joseph, who's down there as well. I think having that 19 combination will be good for them. We've seen it in the past when Kendra Coxedge was down there playing for Canterbury and all those years ago. Their combination of 9 and 10, obviously Hannah King wasn't there, but they were very strong when they had that strong 9 and 10 back in the day. So I think Hannah will be huge for them, and I think the poll as well. Look, I think they've probably been a little bit disappointing in terms of the competition and where they wanted. So I think very similar to what the Highlanders were. We kind of wrote off the Highlanders, and they put in a great performance, and they have a great culture through Jamie Joseph. So hopefully the poll can take, I guess, the confidence of what the Highlanders can do, and they can build their own history in this competition for this year.
And the poll will be ably assisted by the return of Aisha Leti Linga, who wasn't available last year. Aisha, one of the most dominant ball runners in the world, incredible, scores so many tries, so powerful out on the wing, of course, scored in that World Cup final a couple of years ago. We caught up with her, and, you know, she is just as effervescent off the field as she is on it. Welcome.
Thank you.
New season, exciting?
Yes, very exciting.
Yeah, good off season though?
You could say that.
Yeah.
They say it's a 3-week break, but technically it's not a break. It's the test of your discipline. Yep.
So the alarm was going off at 5:30.
Yeah.
At the same time the Chippers alarm goes off every morning.
Yeah.
And you're into the gym.
Yep.
The difference is she's going to win a
I'm
World
going
Cup.
out, you're coming
I'm
in.
doing it for vanity. So it's just two different training methods.
Nice. It must be super cool to come in this year with your fitness, because last year you're obviously making your way through the ACL and going through all of that. Now you got your fitness in place, and you must be in a really good place.
Yeah, I guess with a whole year out with injury, it was kind of put into perspective of how much I was losing and how FOMO I was just watching everyone play and not realizing that, well, being injured made me realize